Hey guys, tonight we journey to a land of sun-scorched stone, golden gods, and daily discomforts that would make your air-conditioned life look like royalty. You are about to wake up in ancient Egypt. Not as a pharaoh, mind you, but as a very average person. And no, you don't get a pyramid. Imagine this. The first light of Ra peeks over the eastern horizon. A copper glow spills across the mud brick walls of your tiny house, heating up the clay like a preheated oven. There's no glass in the windows, just carved slits that do absolutely nothing to stop the heat, the flies, or your neighbor's loud goat. You open your eyes on a straw-stuffed mattress which smells faintly of mildew and last night's lentils. Your back is already sore because, fun fact, your bed has no mattress springs, just planks. If you were lucky, you use your carved wooden headrests, Egyptian equivalent of a neck chiropractor's worst nightmare. You sit up, brush the sand off your chest, yes, it's everywhere, always, and prepare to face the day. Your one-room house is packed. You, your spouse, 3 kids, and a particularly vocal goose all share this humble home. The walls are decorated with soot stains and maybe a scratched-on protective eye of Horus. Outside, the village is stirring. Someone's shouting about missing sandals. A woman balances a basket of onions on her head with the poise of an Olympic gymnast. The smell of dung fires, baked bread, and unwashed humanity wafts in like a friendly slap. You step outside into the morning sun and it's already 90. By noon, it'll climb to 110. There's no AC, no shade, and no sympathy from the sun god Ra, who is frankly in a bit of a mood lately. You squint toward the River Nile in the distance. It's your lifeline. Drinking water, irrigation, bathing, and sometimes, regrettably, your local laundromat. Villagers are already hauling buckets of water, shouting cheerful insults at one another. A child chases a dog, the dog wins. Inside, breakfast is brewing, bread and beer, and not in the hipster brunch way. This is coarse barley bread with bits of stone from poorly ground grain. It wears your teeth down like sandpaper. Your ancestors thought dental work was optional, and they paid the price. You too have molars like gravel. But before you eat, hygiene calls. And by hygiene, we mean the toilet situation. You shuffle over to the corner of your courtyard where the family latrine awaits, a hole in the ground with a pile of sand nearby. There's no paper, obviously. Instead, you've got smooth ceramic shards or a wet sponge on a stick, if you're posh. Either way, it's a thrilling way to start the day. Next comes your skincare, because yes, even 3,000 years ago, sun protection mattered. But SPF wasn't a thing. Instead, you reach for your homemade paste, olive oil, beeswax, and, you guessed it, crocodile dung. You smear this earthy delight across your face and arms. It smells natural. Mosquitoes respect your commitment, but not your boundaries. Historians still argue whether this concoction had medicinal properties or was simply a terrifying deterrent to sunstroke and dating. Either way, you're glowing, mostly from oil. Back inside, your eldest son is pounding grain with a stone mortar, sweat dripping from his brow. The beer is fermenting quietly in a clay jar. You grab a hunk of bread, take a swig of the cloudy, warm beer, and try not to think about the fly that just drowned in it. It's breakfast of the Nile-born champions. As you eat, your spouse gives you the to-do list. Repair the goat pen, patch the roof, again. Fetch reeds for basket making. Oh, and check the trap. Last night, something scuttled into the clay jar you left out. Maybe a beetle. Maybe dinner. You head out, passing neighbors who offer sleepy nods and the occasional passive-aggressive, "May your bread rise better than yesterday." You're wearing a simple linen tunic, or if you're a man, just a wraparound kilt. Either way, your armpits are already on fire. Fashion's not the priority. Staying alive is. You cross a narrow path worn into the earth by generations of calloused feet. Dust clings to your legs. A merchant passes by with a donkey cart full of onions and amulets. You nod at him. He grunts back. The donkey farts. Everyone pretends not to notice. A few minutes later, you stop to fill your water jar from the communal well. A woman next to you murmurs a prayer to Taweret, the hippo goddess of childbirth, because she's pregnant and the baby's kicking like a river eel. You wish her luck. She thanks you by offering a small carved scarab for protection. Take it. It might come in handy, or at least keep the flies away. You return home to the sound of your youngest child singing to a clay doll shaped like a baboon. Cute, until the doll talks back and gets blamed for knocking over a pot of lentil stew. You sigh. This again. The morning slips by in a haze of chores, sweat, and dust. By mid-morning, the sun is a hammer. You press a damp cloth to your forehead. Somewhere nearby, temple drums begin to pound. A procession for Hathor, maybe. Or someone important died. Or both. In Egypt, the line between party and funeral is weirdly thin. You pause to watch the line of priests go by, their bodies smeared in sacred oil, chanting rhythmically. One is carrying a sistrum, a kind of sacred rattle. Another is clearly bored out of his mind. You relate. You turn back to your tasks. But a sandstorm is beginning to kick up. You squint against the rising dust, pull your linen over your nose, and brace. It's not a storm, more like an angry breeze throwing sand into your ears like nature's own aggressive exfoliant. Later that day, you take shelter with neighbors in a stone storage hut. Inside, someone pulls out a reed pipe and starts playing. Children chase each other around sacks of emmer grain. Someone opens a jar of preserved dates and offers you one. It tastes like old honey and hope. You lean back against the cool stone wall, squinting through the doorway at the sunlit chaos beyond. A cat slinks past your legs, tail flicking. Cats are sacred, and you're careful not to offend it. It meows with disdain anyway. By the time the wind dies down, you're coated. Morning again. You know the drill. Sweat, dust, flies, repeat. But today, something's different. Your stomach lurches in mild dread because you've just remembered. Today is latrine cleaning day. And no, there's no plumbing. Not even a bucket with a smile. You shuffle out of bed, rubbing the grit from your eyes with a hand that smells faintly of old garlic. Your family's corner toilet, really just a hole surrounded by baked mud, is full. Again. Which means someone has to dig it out and haul the delightful contents to the compost mound outside the village. Spoiler, it's you. You grab your trusty waste scoop, basically a curved stick, and get to work, trying not to gag as the morning sun heats up yesterday's offerings. Meanwhile, a beetle watches you from the wall like it's judging your life choices. Ancient Egypt is known for many things: pyramids, mummies, gold masks, but no one ever talks about the smell. The mix of human waste, animal dung, incense, and rotting fish is layered. You get used to it eventually. Kind of. Not really. Once your civic duty is complete, you head to the Nile for a wash. The water's murky but cool. You share the bank with a half dozen other villagers, men, women, children, all scrubbing armpits and laundry. A boy splashes you and narrowly avoids being tossed in by his older sister. You catch a glimpse of something dark and wide-eyed lurking just beneath the water. Probably a fish. Hopefully not a crocodile. You reach for your soap, made from animal fat and ash, and scrub vigorously. There's no shampoo, so you use water and prayer. Your scalp still itches. Lice were basically roommates back then. Once clean, it's time to apply the sunscreen. You reach into a small jar of your family's signature blend: crocodile dung, sour milk, crushed lotus petals, and a pinch of natron salt. Supposedly, it keeps your skin young. Realistically, it makes you smell like a swamp that regrets its life choices. Still, it's better than nothing. The sun here isn't just hot, it's judgmental. If you forget your sunscreen, your skin roasts like a sacrificial goose. Historians still argue whether the dung mixture actually had antiseptic qualities or just repelled people out of your personal space bubble. Either way, you're slathered in it now and ready to face the day. But first, mouth care. Toothpaste, Egyptian edition, is made from crushed rock salt, mint leaves, dried iris flowers,
and a little pepper. You smear it onto a frayed twig and scrub your teeth. Your gums hate you, but at least your breath smells like angry herbs. Back home, your spouse has prepped your lunch. Stale bread, more beer, and, surprise, an onion. It's a full meal by local standards. You stuff everything into a woven reed basket and sling it over your shoulder. Your first stop is the workshop on the edge of the village, where you help craft ceramic jars. It's back-breaking work, molding wet clay, spinning it on a wobbly foot-powered wheel, then setting it to dry under the brutal sun. Your hands are cracked, your tunic is caked in red dust, and you've somehow got clay in your ear again. While you work, you swap gossip with the man next to you. He claims his cousin saw the vizier's pet baboon stealing grapes from the temple garden. You both laugh. Baboons, like cats, are considered sacred, but that doesn't stop them from being little jerks. Around mid-morning, you take a break and share your onion with 2 other workers. You each take a bite like it's a pomegranate. Your eyes water, your nose burns, and you nod approvingly. This one's ripe. You find a bit of shade beneath a dusty fig tree and drink from your water skin. The water's warm and vaguely fishy, but it's better than nothing. A small breeze rustles the reeds, and for a moment you almost feel relaxed. Until your boss shows up. He's in his mid-40s, with sun-baked skin and an expression that suggests he hasn't laughed since the reign of Thutmose III. He frowns at your half-finished jars and mutters something about quotas. You try to smile, but your mouth is full of bread and regret. Still, you nod, bow slightly, and return to work.
Ancient Egyptian bosses were notoriously demanding, especially those connected to temple projects or noble households. If you fall behind, you might get reassigned to quarry duty. And no one comes back cheerful from quarry duty. You spend the next few hours bent over, shaping jar after jar. Your arms ache, your back protests, and the sun presses down like a particularly aggressive house cat. But eventually the workday ends. Sort of. You still have to run errands. You trek across the village to trade some broken pottery for fresh leeks and a bundle of garlic. You wave to the elderly woman selling amulets carved from carnelian. She offers you a beetle-shaped one.
You don't ask questions, you just eat.
As the sun sets, the air cools, and the stars blink awake over the desert, you stretch out on the roof with your family, because the house is too hot to sleep in, and stare at the sky. A jackal howls in the distance. Somewhere, a priest begins his evening chants. You close your eyes and let the sounds wash over you. The soft whisper of the Nile, the rustle of palm fronds, the distant rattle of a sistrum. And just as you're about to drift off, a mosquito buzzes directly into your ear, because even in ancient Egypt, peace is never guaranteed.
You wake up with your mouth dry.
Your back sore, and a mosquito bite on your eyebrow the size of a lentil. The stars have faded, and the pink-gold light of morning creeps across the village. Another day, another opportunity to get sand in places sand has no right to be. The rooftop was cooler, sure, but now your neck is stiff, and you spent the night dodging beetles that apparently think human skin is prime real estate. You stretch, yawn, and shuffle downstairs. The first order of business? Breakfast. Your eldest daughter is already pounding barley with a heavy grinding stone. The rhythmic thump, thump, thump echoes through the courtyard like a sleepy heartbeat. You grab a piece of bread from yesterday, hard as a brick and just as nutritious. You gnaw it slowly like a determined squirrel, then wash it down with a gulp of barley beer. Yes, beer, for breakfast. It's what everyone drinks, from toddlers to temple scribes. Water is dicey, and beer at least pretends to be clean. This isn't your Friday night pub kind of beer. It's thick, gritty, sour, and unfiltered, with floating bits of mash that like to wedge themselves between your molars. It tastes vaguely of wet socks and yesterday's bread, which makes sense because that's pretty much what it is. Historians still argue whether this beer counted as food or drink, but the consensus is it's both. Think of it as a breakfast smoothie from hell. Mid-chew, you feel that familiar crunch of sand between your teeth. The bread, as always, is packed with it. That's thanks to the grinding method, stones on stones which grind not only the grain, but tiny bits of sandstone into the flour. Delicious. Over time, this wears your teeth down to little nubs. Archaeologists have found ancient Egyptian skulls with molars ground flatter than a pancake. You rub your jaw and try not to think about it. Once your stomach's half full, it's time to pack your lunch. You wrap more bread in a cloth, drop in a leek, and pour beer into a stoppered jar. Your spouse hands you a small amulet tied with a frayed string, a protective eye of Horus to keep bad luck at bay. You smile, tuck it into your tunic, and head out. Today you're off to help with the harvest. The fields lie just beyond the irrigation canals, and the Nile is receded enough to reveal the thick black soil left behind by the flood. It's the time of year when every able-bodied villager pitches in. If you don't, there's no food for winter. And starving is deeply unfashionable. The walk is long, hot, and buzzing with mosquitoes. You trudge past groups of villagers, all heading the same way, all wearing basically the same thing: linen, sweat, and quiet despair. A few kids run barefoot, laughing. You envy their energy and their lack of responsibilities. Then one trips and faceplants into a thorn bush. Balance restored. You reach the fields by mid-morning. The overseer, a pot-bellied man with a scar over his left eye, waves you toward the far edge of the barley rows.
You take your sickle, made from sharpened flint, set into a wooden handle, and start cutting. Swipe, gather, tie, repeat. It's monotonous, back-breaking work. The sun blazes overhead, gnats swarm your face, and your hands are soon raw and bleeding from the stalks. But at least you're not in the quarries, right? The women nearby sing a call and response to keep the rhythm. The melody is soothing, lilting. A verse about Ra's chariot. Another about a cow that got into the beer jar. Classic. During your midday break, you sit under the thin shadow of a palm tree and unwrap your lunch. The bread is sweaty from the heat, the beer is warm, and the leek smells suspiciously like foot. Still, it's food. A beetle crawls onto your cloth, and you flick it away lazily. The sun plays tricks on your eyes. For a moment, you think you see a figure out by the canal, dressed in white linen, wearing a golden pendant shaped like a scarab. Maybe a priest, maybe a mirage. You blink. Gone. Fringe folklore says spirits sometimes appear during harvest season. Ancient ancestors, checking in to make sure you're not slacking off. You mutter a quick prayer to Osiris, just in case. Work resumes. Your tunic is soaked through, your feet ache, and the sweat stings your eyes. But the barley piles grow higher, and that's what matters. Suddenly, a shout. Someone's collapsed in the next row over. The heat's claimed another. The overseer curses and waves for water. A boy sprints to the canal. You feel a chill that has nothing to do with wind. Even in a land with gods of healing, heatstroke is terrifyingly common. By late afternoon, you're done. Your arms feel like lead. You trudge back toward the village, barley dust in your lungs and the amulet at your chest sticky with sweat. On the way home, you pass by a small shrine. It's dedicated to Renenutet, the goddess of harvest and nourishment. You pause, touch the carved stone lightly, and whisper thanks. Then you realize a lizard has taken up residence in the offering bowl. You pretend not to notice. So does the lizard. At home, the kids are arguing over a bone dice game. Your spouse is stirring a pot of lentils. You collapse onto the floor, exhausted. The family goose hops onto your chest and honks directly into your face. You don't even care. Dinner is simple, quiet. Everyone's too tired to talk much. A neighbor swings by to trade dried dates for one of your clay jars. You nod and hand it over. You like her. She once punched a tax collector. Hero material. Later, you lay on the roof again, listening to the hum of nighttime insects and the murmur of distant temple drums. A soft breeze stirs the edge of your tunic.
You wake up to the sound of shouting. Again. Someone's ox has wandered into the breadmaker's yard and knocked over a week's supply of emmer flour. There's a lot of yelling, flour everywhere, and the ox looks entirely unbothered. You sigh and roll over, but sleep isn't coming back. The day has officially begun. Today you're heading to work, not the cozy office cubicle kind of work, but the ancient Egyptian version. Scorching sun impossible quotas, and supervisors who think encouragement involves yelling and throwing things. Whether you're hauling stone, weaving linen, or scribbling for a scribe with control issues, the one constant is this: your job is probably awful. You choke down a hunk of bread and a gulp of beer, pat your sun-dried amulet for luck, and make your way toward the worksite. Today you've been summoned to a building project. A mid-sized tomb for some middle-ranked noble who insisted on lots of columns and a dramatic ceiling. Classic. You're not a stonecutter, but they're short-staffed, so here you are, basically glorified muscle. Your tool? A chunk of dolerite and some questionable optimism. You arrive to find chaos. Blocks of limestone are being dragged across the sand on sledges, lubricated with water and, sometimes, fish oil. The air smells like dust and determination. Supervisors bark orders, workers grunt and sweat, and one man is already passed out in the shade, with his feet still twitching. You're assigned to help haul a massive block up a ramp. This isn't just a ramp. It's a towering slope of packed clay and stone, longer than the local temple and twice as steep. And guess what? There's no pulley system. It's all manpower, baby. You grab the rope, rough palm fibers that cut into your hands, and pull, and pull, and pull. Your muscles scream. Your back threatens to mutiny. The block inches forward like it knows you personally, and resents your family. As you drag, a scribe walks past, noting things on his papyrus scroll. He doesn't lift a finger, just scribbles and adjusts his shiny black wig. You contemplate, accidentally, tripping him into the path of the next stone, but the gods are probably watching. Historians still argue whether the massive labor force behind these constructions was made up entirely of slaves, or if it was more complex. Truth is, many workers were volunteers, meaning they owed labor as tax. It's patriotic unpaid overtime with blisters. At the top of the ramp, the block is wedged into place by stonemasons, who argue over alignments while eating pickled radishes. You collapse onto the sand, gasping. Someone tosses you a gourd of water. You drink deeply, ignoring the floaty things inside. Your break doesn't last long. Next, you're sent to the pigment tent. Apparently, they need someone to mix paint. You're shown a tray of minerals: red ochre, yellow, from arsenic-rich orpiment, blue, from crushed lapis lazuli. Beautiful. Toxic. Fabulous. You grind pigment with a stone, add gum arabic, and test the consistency with a reed brush. It's kind of fun until your supervisor sniffs and says your yellow's a little weepy. You don't know what that means, but he seems disappointed in your soul. Still, painting beats hauling. You sneak a bit of ultramarine onto your tunic sleeve. Just a dot. It makes you feel fancy. After lunch, more bread, more beer, fewer leaks. You're assigned to shade duty. This sounds like a vacation. It's not. It means standing near the noble's overseer with a reed mat to block the sun from his delicate face. He talks a lot about how spiritually exhausting it is to supervise architecture. You nod, trying not to pass out. Eventually, the overseer wanders off to bless a lintel or flirt with the pigment mixer, and you're free. For a moment. Because now the carpenter's assistant needs help lifting a cedar beam. You oblige, only to get a splinter the size of a date pit jammed into your palm. You try not to cry. You spend the rest of the afternoon gathering tools, sweeping debris, and avoiding your least favorite supervisor, the one who yells and spits when he talks. By sunset, your feet are raw, your brain fried, and your spirit slightly cracked. But work's not over yet. On your way home, a temple priest flags you down. They need extra hands to help unload goods from a river barge. Baskets of papyrus, jars of honey, and something wrapped in linen that smells suspiciously like incense and regret. You agree, mostly because saying no to a priest is considered bad form and possibly bad luck. While hauling a jar labeled Offerings to Hathor, you overhear two priests gossiping about the noble whose tomb you worked on earlier. Apparently, he bribed someone to get extra columns. Classic noble move. You smirk. Even in death, people want to show off. By the time you reach your village, stars have started to peek out. The air is cooler. Your house glows softly from the oil lamp inside. You step in, dump your bundle, and collapse onto the floor. Your spouse hands you a clay cup of date wine. You take a sip and feel the tension melt from your bones. Kind of. Your back still hurts. You eat in silence, mostly too tired to chew. The kids ask questions about your day. You tell them you painted yellow. They're impressed. Was it for a god? One asks. No, you say, just a wall. But in that moment, it feels kind of holy. Later, lying under the stars, you think about the tomb again. About the columns, the paint, the pigmented sweat in the sand. You wonder, in 1,000 years, will anyone still see it? Or will they only see your handprint in the yellow pigment? Weepy or not?
This morning, you're not going to the fields. You're not hauling stone or cleaning latrines either. No, today, you're going to school. Surprise! You've been selected, probably thanks to a well-placed bribe of dates and ice goose, for training as a scribe. That means learning to read, write, and survive in a building where the teachers hit harder than the sun. Your family is thrilled. A child in scribal school? That's a ticket to social mobility, baby. Maybe even a temple job. You, on the other hand, are less thrilled. You've heard the stories. The wax tablet to the knuckles, the endless repetition, the ink that never comes out of your fingernails. Still, it's better than hauling bricks, right? Probably. You head off just after dawn, stomach full of beer and barely chewed bread, carrying your precious reed pen, ink palette, and a tiny writing board coated in beeswax. It's light, but the pressure? Heavy. The scribal school is part of a small administrative complex near the edge of the village. It's a one-room oven made of mud brick, packed with kids aged 6 to 14, all squirming on reed mats and trying not to get whacked. The air is thick with dust, sweat, and the sour tang of nervous children. At the front of the room stands your instructor, Pa Neb, whose name means the Lord, and who is absolutely feeling himself. He wears a crisp linen kilt, eyeliner that would make Cleopatra jealous, and a look of eternal disappointment. He doesn't speak. He stares, slowly, one kid at a time. Someone coughs. A girl near you accidentally knocks over her ink pot. Pa Neb moves like a cobra. One sharp slap with the writing stick, and order is restored. Lesson 1, he finally says, is silence. You spend the first hour copying a single line onto your wax tablet, over and over. Words are life. A scribe never sleeps. Cool. You're already exhausted. Your hand cramps. The wax melts slightly from your body heat. A fly lands on your nose and refuses to leave. Someone behind you burps. You stare at your writing and realize you've accidentally drawn a very confused-looking duck instead of a hieroglyph for bread. You scrape it off and start again. The ink you use isn't like modern ink. It's made from soot and gum mixed with water, black for everyday writing, red for headings or corrections. Your reed pen must be shaved daily for a fine point, and you better not spill it. Ink stains are eternal, and Pa Neb keeps track. Break time comes mid-morning. You and the other students rush outside, blinking in the sunlight like stunned beetles. You sit beneath a fig tree and eat your snack, a date, a sliver of soft cheese, and a chunk of barley bread. The girl next to you is chewing papyrus. You ask if she's hungry. No, she replies. It helps me memorize vocabulary. You file that under weird but possibly genius. Back inside, it's time for dictation. Pa Neb recites lines from the Instruction of Tahotep, a famous scroll full of wisdom like, "Do not be arrogant because of your knowledge." You write it down, thinking of Pa Neb's eyeliner and smirk, and feel the irony hard. Then it's grammar drills. How to address a noble properly, how to list a god's titles in the right order, and how not to accidentally insult someone's lineage. Ancient Egyptian is complicated. There's no punctuation, barely any vowels, and 3 different ways to write the same word, depending on whether you're flattering a priest or insulting a thief. You mess up the determinative for man, and instead write something closer to flesh-colored beetle. Pa Neb notices. He doesn't hit you, but he sighs loud enough to offend 3 gods. You survive the day, somehow. After class, Pa Neb calls you aside. Your handwriting's uneven. Your spelling is adequate, if written by a drunk ibis. But he sees potential. He hands you a fresh wax tablet and says, "Practice until your fingers bleed. Then start again." Encouraging. On your walk home, you pass other kids your age, hauling water or weaving reeds into mats. They stare at your ink-stained hands like you're part wizard, part nerd. One boy mutters, "Scribbler," under his breath. You take it as a compliment. At home, your family is waiting.
Your little brother asks you to write his name. You carve it carefully onto a scrap of old pottery. He's delighted. Your father watches silently, then nods once. That nod says, "Don't mess this up." Or possibly, "Nice handwriting." Hard to tell. Dinner is better than usual. Someone caught fish. You eat with inky fingers and dream of scrolls. And maybe, just maybe, your own reed pen someday, carved from sycamore wood, engraved with your name, the one who did not completely fail at grammar. That night, you lie under the stars and whisper the alphabet to yourself. Your lips form the shapes slowly, deliberately, like casting spells. You trace a single word in the dust. Ankh. Life. Not too bad for day one.
You wake up, scratching your scalp. Again. That shaved head of yours? Yeah, it's not just a bold fashion choice. It's damage control. Because lice, my friend, are the real rulers of ancient Egypt. You can scrub with natron, pray to Bess, and douse yourself in lotus oil, but the moment you let your guard down, those little beasts are back, treating your scalp like beachfront property. Still, you roll out of bed. Today's market day, and that means showing off. You've got your cleanest linen wrap, which is to say, less stained than usual. Your best reed sandals, and a tiny dab of myrrh oil behind each ear. Fancy. Linen is the fabric of choice in Egypt, and not because it's trendy. Cotton isn't even in the picture yet. Linen's light, breathable, and slightly translucent, which is fine because modesty here is more of a guideline than a rule. You've probably seen your neighbor's entire thigh more times than your own spouse's face. You give yourself a final once-over in a polished copper mirror. It's warped, scratched, and makes your nose look like a yam, but it'll do. Your skin glistens slightly from the scented animal fat you applied earlier, a homegrown moisturizer and perfume rolled into one. You smell like a waxy garden. Hot. Historians still argue whether men wore more cosmetics than women, or if everyone was equally obsessed with eyeliner. You don't need a scholar to tell you what you already know. Kohl is life. That smooth black line around the eyes doesn't just look fierce, it helps deflect sun glare and repel flies. Probably. Also, it's just a vibe. You grab your cosmetics kit, a small stone palette, a stick of green malachite for that pop of color, and a tiny wooden spatula. Then you line your eyes like a pro, stopping only when your kid yells, "Dad, you look like a priest's pet cat." Compliment received. You walk to the market with your head high, eyeliner sharp, and kilt fluttering in the breeze. The village square is bustling, merchants shouting, children laughing, goats pooping directly in front of the granary. Standard. There's music, too. A woman is playing a lute-like instrument while her sister claps in rhythm. A dog howls along badly. You give it a sympathetic nod. Your first stop is the cloth vendor. You're hoping to trade a basket you made, with only 3 structural flaws, for some dyed linen. Blues and reds are rare, imported, expensive, and wildly out of reach. But there's a dusty lavender bolt that catches your eye. The vendor laughs at your offer. "Maybe if the basket held water," she says, smirking. You don't argue. You buy more thread instead. Nearby, the wig stand is getting attention. You see your neighbor trying on a shoulder-length one made of braided human hair. Most settle for palm fiber wigs dipped in beeswax. Less comfortable, more squeaky, very flammable. You've seen it happen. You move on to the jewelry vendor. Necklaces of faience beads, turquoise charms, and carved ivory glint in the sun. You finger a tiny scarab on a cord. It's probably meant for luck, or fertility, or maybe both, depending on how you hold it. You trade some dried figs for a single amulet shaped like the goddess Hathor's cow ears. When the vendor tells you it will make people adore you, you chuckle and mutter, "Too late." As the sun rises higher, you duck into a shaded stall and buy a cup of tamarind drink. Sweet,
tart, and slightly fermented. It cools your tongue and fogs your thoughts just a little. A street performer juggles palm nuts while balancing on an overturned fish basket. Someone tosses him a date. He misses. You sit nearby and people watch. Nobles float by in pristine linen robes, surrounded by servants and the overwhelming smell of imported perfume. One child is literally fanning her pet duck. You do a double take. Yep, the duck's wearing a tiny collar. You overhear two old women discussing a priest's recent vision involving the god Thoth and a talking ibis. He'd either been blessed, one says, or he drank too much fermented honey. Probably both. As you head home, you pass by the local bathhouse. It's not like Roman ones, no giant pools or mosaics, just a small communal wash area where people sit on mats, scrub each other's backs, and complain about the price of onions. Someone is burning incense nearby, probably to cover the scent of ambition and armpits. You make a mental note to come back later. Your feet smell like they've been reincarnated 3 times, all of them poorly. Back at home, your spouse eyes your new amulet. Another goddess, huh? They ask. It was on sale, you lie. You eat a light lunch, bread, olives, and dried fish, then settle into an afternoon weaving session. Basket making isn't glamorous, but it's meditative. The papyrus strips soak in water, your hands move rhythmically, and your thoughts drift. You wonder what the pharaoh's wardrobe looks like. You've heard rumors of gold-threaded kilts and leopard skin cloaks. You briefly consider becoming a palace stylist. Then remember you can't even afford good dye. By sunset, you're lounging on the roof again. A neighbor is applying blue paint to his eyelids using a fishbone. You exchange nods, mutual respect. The breeze carries a scent of lotus, garlic, and the Nile. Somewhere in the distance, a temple bell rings. Night falls slowly, like a silk scarf unraveling. You lie back and whisper a prayer to Bess, asking for good dreams and fewer lice. He's the god of sleep after all, and very good at scaring off the creepy crawlies. Not that it always works.
The air is heavy when you wake, thick with the scent of herbs, sweat, and something unmistakably dead. Not in a horrifying way. More like in a someone in the family just passed and now everyone's weirdly calm about it kind of way. Because today, your Uncle Horemheb is going on his final journey. That means you, yes, you, get to help with one of the most sacred and bizarrely routine tasks in ancient Egypt: mummification prep. Now, let's not pretend you're some elite embalmer trained in the House of Life. You're a helpful pair of hands, maybe a cousin-in-law's second assistant. But even so, you're inside the embalming tent before breakfast, holding a clay jar labeled liver and trying not to think too hard about anything. Uncle Horemheb wasn't rich, but he saved up. His death package includes the basic 70-day mummification package: linen wrapping, 4 canopic jars, and a modest tomb carving that says, "Beloved of Bastet, Slayer of Rats." An honest legacy. You stand near the embalmers, priests with shaved heads, leopard skin sashes, and breath that smells faintly of date beer and frankincense. They work with precision, murmuring prayers, chanting spells, and occasionally joking in that "we see dead people every day" kind of way. Your job? Hold things. Fetch linen. And try not to faint when the body's nose gets packed with resin-soaked linen strips after the brain removal. Which, yes, happens via the nostrils with a hook. Not great. Historians still debate whether that hook thing was really used regularly or just in rare cases, but you've seen enough snot-soaked tools today to believe it. The embalmers remove Uncle's internal organs: liver, lungs, stomach, intestines, and place them gently into the canopic jars, each with a different animal-headed god as a lid. You hand them over reverently. Baboon for lungs, jackal for stomach, falcon for intestines, human for liver. It's like weird cosmic Tupperware. Next comes drying the body in natron, a naturally occurring salt that pulls out moisture like the Sahara's own brand of skincare. Uncle Horemheb is going to be very well preserved. For the next 40 days, he'll just lie there, marinating like an awkward ham. You help mix unguents and oils for later,
Myrrh, cinnamon, cedar oil, honey, and maybe a splash of something secret the embalmers won't talk about. They say it keeps evil spirits out. You suspect it also keeps beetles out. In the quiet lull between steps, one of the older priests leans over and tells you,
In the old days, they used to wrap onions in the bandages so the gods could smell devotion.
He winks. You're not sure if he's joking. You wrap an extra clove of garlic in your pocket, just in case. While Uncle is drying, you help prep the burial items. A small wooden statue of Anubis, a woven basket of Shabdi figurines, tiny laborers made of faience who will, according to belief, spring to life in the afterworld and do chores for him. You briefly wonder, will your Shabdi do dishes? The room is filled with murmured prayers and the soft tearing of linen into long strips. Wrapping will begin soon, and it's more art than science. The layers must be tight, the amulets placed in just the right positions, and the face covered just enough to still look noble. Horemheb gets a modest, gilded mask. Painted wood, really, but it shines in the lamplight. You assist with wrapping, starting from the feet, moving slowly upward. Amulets are tucked into folds. An eye of Horus over the chest, a jed pillar down the spine, and a scarab charm over the heart. The heart, by the way, has been left inside. That's important. It's the seat of memory, wisdom, and judgment. You don't want to show up in the afterlife without it. That would be awkward. The priest chants from the Book of the Dead, his voice low and rhythmic. You can almost feel the words hum in your bones. The scroll he's reading from is old, covered in hieroglyphs that curl like smoke. One line sticks in your head. May your soul soar on the wings of the morning sun. You repeat it under your breath. It sounds like goodbye and hope at the same time. Once the wrapping is done, Uncle Horemheb is gently placed in a painted coffin. The lid fits with a creak and a sigh, as though even wood understands this is final. But the funeral? Oh, that's where things get lively. A procession gathers. Family, neighbors, a few curious cats. Musicians play mournful flutes. Mourners wail dramatically. Professional criers throw dust on their heads. You try not to smirk. There's definitely one guy fake crying so hard he steps on his own foot. The procession heads to the tomb site. It's not grand. A rectangular shaft, a carved lintel, a clay seal with Anubis standing over a mummy. But it's clean, quiet, and filled with everything Horemheb might need in the afterlife. Jars of beer, baskets of bread, a comb, a blanket, and a letter to the gods that basically says, "Please don't feed me to the demon hippo. I was mostly good." Before sealing the tomb, the priest performs the opening of the mouth ceremony. It's theatrical and deeply sacred. He touches a ritual blade to the mask's mouth, nose, ears, and eyes, reawakening the senses so the spirit can see, hear, smell, speak, and taste in the afterlife. You feel a chill run down your spine. The tomb is sealed, clay bricks pressed into place, prayers whispered one last time. And then it's over. You return home dusty, tired, and smelling faintly of resin. Your family greets you with solemn nods and bowls of lentil stew. You eat in silence, the weight of the day sitting heavy in your chest. Not sadness, exactly, more like reverence. That night you light a single oil lamp shaped like a lotus flower. The flame dances softly, casting golden light on your walls. You whisper the words again. May your soul soar on the wings of the morning sun. And you sleep deeply, dreaming. Today starts with drums. Not soft morning temple bells, but loud, booming, heart-thumping drums, echoing through your ribcage, like a call to arms, or, in this case, to dance. Because today, your village is hosting the Festival of Bastet, goddess of music, fertility, protection, and, of course, cats. You wake up to the chaos of celebration. The sun's barely up, but your neighbor is already drunk and balancing a pot of honey cakes on her head, while singing a song about fish. You stumble outside to the sight of face-painted children, chasing each other with papyrus streamers, and one man loudly declaring himself, High Priest of Party Time. It's going to be a day. The Festival of Bastet is one of the more fun holy days. Emphasis on wine, song, and unhinged joy. People flock from neighboring villages and Nile towns, dressed in their finest linen, adorned with floral collars, and doused in so much perfume you're pretty sure the air itself has developed a musk. Your job? Join the parade. Technically optional, but not really. You pull out your celebration gear, a necklace of blue faience beads, your going-out kilt, creased but clean, and an amulet shaped like a cat's head. You even touch up your eyeliner. Bastet wouldn't stand for smudgy coal. You follow the music to the village square, now transformed into a frenzy of color, motion, and cats. Everywhere. Real ones, painted ones, statues of them. A boy is wearing a cat mask made of reeds and hissing at passers-by. Two girls are trying to balance kittens on their shoulders while dancing. Somehow, the cats look unbothered. You join the procession snaking through the streets, led by temple musicians playing lutes, flutes, and sistrums, sacred metal rattles that sound like a tambourine with pinions. Women in elaborate wigs sway with the rhythm, their arms raised, wrists twirling in stylized gestures that mean protection, joy, and possibly, I'm having a great time. As you march, you pass the shrine to Bastet. It's modest, painted with images of the goddess as a lioness and as a gentle domestic cat. Offerings pile up around the base. Flowers, dried fish, papyrus prayers, and small saucers of milk. A priestess stands beside it, blessing people with a feather fan, and sometimes lightly bopping people on the head, for fun and fertility. You get bopped. You say thank you. A small child hands you a flower. You hand them a nutcake. Bartering affection. Very wholesome. Then come the rituals. Some ancient, some questionably improvised. There's the ceremonial cat washing. 1 scratch, 3 screams, minimal blood. The dance of the 7 cowrie shells. No one remembers what it means, but it's tradition. And the kissing of the mummified cat. Yes, that's a thing. The local temple keeps several cat mummies, preserved long ago and revered as divine vessels. Today they're brought out, carried on small gilded stretchers and displayed with incense and velvet cloths.
One priest holds the smallest mummy like a newborn, whispering blessings as people kiss its tiny snout or just bow respectfully. You lean in, lips inches from linen. The smell is potent, like dried herbs and been dead for a while. But the people around you smile, so you press a quick kiss and move along. Historians still debate how literal these rituals were, whether the cat mummy kissing was symbolic or something the wine made seem like a good idea. Either way, you did it. Bastet would be proud, or at least amused. Lunch is a feast. Honey cakes, roasted duck, lentil stew, fresh pomegranates, and dates soaked in wine. You eat with your hands, laugh with your friends, and try not to pass out in the sun. Someone starts a drinking contest. You politely decline. The last time someone passed out in the Temple of Bastet, they woke up covered in cat hair and shame. You join a quieter gathering near the riverbank. People sit in clusters, singing soft songs and passing around instruments. A woman beside you plays a slow, dreamy melody on a harp made of polished wood and gut strings. You close your eyes and let it pull you like the current. Suddenly, a priest appears carrying a small crocodile. Yep, a real live crocodile. Adorned with a blue sash and beads, of course. He announces it's a sacred creature, possibly a vessel of the god Sobek, who decided to crash the party. The crowd parts nervously. The croc, for its part, looks mildly confused and very full. The priest gently sets it in a shaded pool near the temple steps. Children gather around. One offers it a flower. It does not react. Someone jokes that it's the chillest god of the Nile. You decide not to pet it. Later, as the sun dips low, dancers perform the story of Sekhmet, the lion-headed goddess of vengeance who nearly destroyed humanity until the gods got her drunk on pomegranate beer. It's an intense reenactment. Fake blood, dramatic gasps,
and a surprise appearance by a man dressed as Thoth with scrolls taped to his arms. You laugh, you cry, you clap wildly when Bastet shows up at the end and offers everyone wine and forgiveness. It's basically divine theater with snacks. As darkness falls, oil lamps flicker to life all over the village. The air smells of myrrh and grilled onions. Couples sneak off behind market stalls. Children collapse in piles. Cats roam between legs like four-legged blessings. You sit on the temple steps, watching the stars blink into the velvet sky. Someone sits beside you, a stranger with gold-painted nails and a voice like soft sand. "Did you kiss the cat?" they ask. You nod. Before sleep, you light a single stick of incense and whisper a thanks to Bastet. Not just for the celebration, but for joy. Messy, sacred, human joy. And maybe a little bit for keeping that crocodile chill. The drums are gone, the cat parade is over, and the hangover from Bastet's festival is real. Not from wine, but from sheer joy fatigue and a lingering smell of lotus oil that just won't leave your tunic. You're barely awake when a man with a shaved head and a clipboard made of bound papyrus appears at your door, flanked by 2 scribes and a large basket of urgency. You've been volunteered. It's time to help with pyramid construction. Yes, those pyramids. No, not the Great Pyramid. It's already a relic by your time. But this one? Still massive, still terrifying, and still staffed by what the state lovingly calls patriotic workers, and everyone else calls sweaty, unpaid citizens with sore backs. You don't get to say no. You kiss your spouse goodbye, grab your pack, and join a caravan of wide-eyed recruits on the road. Some look nervous, others excited. You're mostly wondering if you packed enough onions. The desert's dry, and onion is considered both food and deodorant. The sight looms before you by late morning. An enormous rising platform of stone blocks, sand ramps, pulleys made of wood and rope, and an overwhelming sense that this will not be your best week. You're herded into a stone barracks with dozens of others. It's surprisingly clean. The walls are decorated with painted scenes of workers carrying offerings to gods and being blessed. You suspect that part was added by management. The foreman introduces himself. He has arms like tree trunks and a voice like thunder filtered through gravel. "We build for the pharaoh, so he may rise to the stars," he says, and then, without skipping a beat, "Don't drop anything, ever. Welcome aboard." You're assigned to ramp duty. Not glamorous. Your job? Help drag 2-ton limestone blocks up a massive sloped ramp under the sun with 20 other men, all chanting a rhythmic heave ho, like your survival depends on it. It does. The ramp is slick with water. Workers run ahead to pour jugs of it under the sledges, creating a layer of mud to ease the slide. It almost helps. You pull until your knees tremble, your spine protests, and your hands feel like fire. The stone creeps forward, inch by agonizing inch. A fellow worker hands you a cup of fermented barley drink. It tastes like socks. You love it. Break time is short. You use it to wander sight. There are artists carving hieroglyphs into walls, their brushes steady even as sand swirls around them. Priests bless new sections of the tomb with incense and chants. You peek at a freshly painted panel, Ra sailing his solar bark across the sky, flanked by baboons and flames. Casual.
You spot a group of women cooking for the labor crews. Flatbread, onions, garlic stew, and salted fish, protein to keep you upright. You grab a plate and inhale it like someone who's been hauling rocks for 6 hours. Because you have. Later, you help stack smaller blocks into place, working alongside a guy named Jehutimos, who claims he once dropped a brick on his boss's foot and got promoted. You laugh. He does not. You make a note never to anger him. By sunset, your body feels like it's aged 30 years. You lie on your mat in the barracks, watching the ceiling flicker with oil lamp shadows. Someone is softly humming a hymn to Osiris. Someone else is definitely snoring through their nose like a broken reed flute. You sleep like stone. The next morning, it begins again. This time, you're reassigned to the tool crew. Your job? Sharpen copper chisels by pounding them against a slab of basalt, then running them through a grooved stone block for final shaping. Your fingers vibrate from the effort. Sparks fly, and you pray you don't chip a nail. There's no such thing as a manicure here, just tetanus. You work beside a man who claims to be from Memphis, not the modern one, the actual Memphis, capital city of Lower Egypt. He boasts about paved streets and tall columns. You ask if that's true. Probably, he says. I left when I was 4. Fair. Lunch is water, more beer, and something the cook calls meat. You don't ask. You dip bread in garlic sauce and pretend it's lamb. As you eat, you hear the foreman argue with the overseer, something about deadline pressure and too many inspectors. Apparently, the vizier's cousin wants to be buried next door, and now the construction schedule has doubled. Everyone groans. That night, someone brings out a flute and plays a lullaby under the stars. It's slow, haunting, and beautiful. You stare at the half-finished pyramid, its angles sharp against the sky, and realize it might outlive everything, even memory. Later, as you drift into sleep, you whisper to the stone above you, "Don't fall." It doesn't. Yet. You're back in your village, finally. Every joint in your body still sings the chorus of the pyramid blues, and your spine might be shaped like a question mark now. But you're home. And home means warm bread, fewer supervisors, and only a moderate chance of being bitten by a goose before breakfast. You barely sit down to exhale when your neighbor pokes their head over the low wall and says the words that send a chill through your already throbbing bones. You should see a healer. You wince. Because you know what's coming. Ancient Egyptian medicine is many things, spiritual, herb-filled, occasionally effective, but it's rarely gentle. You drag yourself over to the local Swenwa, a physician trained in the sacred art of healing, temple-sanctioned and proudly wielding both papyrus scrolls and terrifying tools. His name is Hori, and he's already scowling. "You look like a badly rolled papyrus," he mutters, prodding your lower back with a stick. "How long has this been hurting?" "Since the pyramid," you reply. He nods like this is both obvious and your fault. He tells you to lie down on a mat made from woven reeds and then proceeds to smear your back with moldy bread paste. You don't ask why. You just assume it's sacred. Or a prank, possibly both. Then, he places a poultice of mashed garlic and pig fat on your shoulder while chanting a prayer to Sekhmet, lion goddess of plagues and healing. You try to relax. The smell says no. Ancient Egyptian medicine wasn't just about herbs. It was a fusion of science and spell work. You needed both the treatment and the words, and sometimes the theatrics. Hori waves a carved ivory wand over your chest. You ask what it does. "Keeps demons out," he says. You nod, like that makes sense, because here, it does. Historians still debate how effective these spells were. Were they psychological, symbolic, divine placebo? All you know is your back now smells like a haunted kitchen, and your pain has slightly faded. Or maybe your senses have just given up. For your lingering cough, Hori prescribes a mixture of crushed dates, carob, and lizard tail boiled into a syrup. You drink it. It tastes like a mistake. You try not to gag. Next, he examines your stomach complaints. "Have you been eating too much raw onion?" he asks. You stare at him, stunned. That's half your diet. He frowns like you've disappointed not only him, but possibly Ra himself. He gives you a garlic enema. Let's not talk about that. You leave the healer with a pouch of dried herbs, 3 amulets for intestinal balance, and an overwhelming desire to lie down forever. Back home, your spouse greets you with sympathy and a bowl of lentil soup. You dip your bread, chew slowly, and whisper, "I survived." They pat your head. You always do.
That night, you dream of Sekhmet roaring at a group of demons holding measuring sticks. One demon looks a lot like...
You dream of glowing pyramids, dancing crocodiles, and a priest shouting, "Get off the altar, that's not for sitting." You wake up laughing. Medicine here isn't just for the body. It's for the mind, the spirit, the fear in your bones when your child coughs, your leg aches for no clear reason. The next morning, you take a small offering of bread and garlic to the shrine of Sekhmet, just in case. Her statue stands tall, fierce, regal, teeth bared in a snarl. You bow. "Thanks," you whisper, "mostly for not smiting me." The statue doesn't reply, but a warm breeze rustles your tunic as you leave. You take it as a yes. The sound of frogs croaking wakes you up. Not one or two, hundreds. They're singing from puddles that weren't there yesterday. Your house smells faintly of damp reeds and mold. You sit up slowly, stare at your dripping ceiling, and let the realization hit you. The Nile has flooded. Again. But this isn't a disaster, it's the cycle. This annual inundation is sacred, vital, and extremely inconvenient. The flood brings life. It also brings mud, mosquitoes, and the very real possibility of hippos trampling your vegetable patch. You step outside and squelch directly into shin-deep water. Your neighbor floats by on an upside-down basket, waving cheerfully while steering with a long stick. "Good flood this year," he calls. "You might lose your goat." You wave back. That goat was never loyal anyway. The entire village is half submerged. Mud brick walls glisten in the sun. Ducks paddle between buildings. Children splash through what used to be the town square. Someone's laundry is floating away like a pale, wet ghost. You trudge toward the canal edge, trying not to think about what's in the water. Because here's the thing. The Nile flood carries rich, black silt, the heart of Egyptian agriculture, but it also carries everything else. Fish bones, old offerings, maybe your cousin's sandal from last year. The priests call it Hapi's gift, the divine overflow that fertilizes the fields and ensures a bountiful harvest. They perform rituals, burn incense, and toss bread and herbs into the water to thank the god of the flood. You're just trying to keep your home from floating into the afterlife. Historians still argue whether villagers had accurate flood predictions, but most locals swear by signs. Frog songs, rising humidity, and the behavior of sacred ibis birds. You once heard someone say, if a cat walks backward into the Nile, it'll be a mild year. You haven't tested it, yet. Today, your job is to check the shaduf, a counterweighted irrigation tool used to scoop water out of the canals into higher ground. It's basically a long pole with a bucket and a big rock, and it makes you feel like you're fighting. At midday, the water recedes slightly, and you walk along the dikes. These raised banks keep the flood in check, mostly. You spot a crack in the embankment and immediately start patching it with mud and woven reeds. The farmer next to you grumbles, "Last year, we lost a granary. This year, it's my goat. The gods are running out of ideas." Lunch is soggy bread and a pickled fish you found floating past your doorway. You thank Hapi before eating it. You don't want to offend the flood god, not when you're hip deep in his backyard. Later in the day, you help the surveyors from the House of Life. They arrive in boats, carrying long cords and measurement rods. These men are trained to calculate where the fields begin, where they end, and who owes taxes based on how well their land has been blessed. It's part math, part magic, and a lot of arguing. They stretch a knotted rope across the flooded plain, muttering calculations and occasionally swatting flies. One of them points at a rock. That was the border last year. Another points at your house. That's the border this year. You may now, technically, live in your neighbor's field. It's going to be an awkward harvest. When the surveyors leave, the village relaxes. Kids swim in the new temporary lakes. A woman floats past selling cold beer from a clay pot, shouting, "Stay hydrated," like a prophet. You buy some.
It's slightly fizzy and full of river grit. Perfect. You join your friends near the palm grove, now half underwater, and build a temporary raft from papyrus bundles. It floats, barely. You take turns paddling, laughing, and occasionally bailing out water with your sandals. It's not practical, but it's fun. At dusk, the temple bells ring for the blessing of the banks. Everyone gathers near the water's edge. Priests in shimmering linen robes chant to the setting sun while tossing lotus flowers into the current. You light a small oil lamp and float it down the canal. It drifts beside others, a constellation of flickering lights carried by the current. As you watch, someone beside you murmurs, "The Nile remembers." You nod. You're not sure what that means, but it feels true. That night, back on your roof, you hear the frogs again. Loud, rhythmic, determined. The flood will last a few weeks. Then come planting, harvesting, taxes. For now, it's just water and moonlight and the smell of wet clay. You fall asleep to the sound of distant chanting and the splash of river gods moving just beneath the surface. And possibly your goat. You wake up to the sound of whispered gossip and the distinct thwack of a neighbor throwing a sandal at a chicken. It's a calm day. No pyramids, no floods, no funerals. Just the most unpredictable force in ancient Egyptian society, romance. You're not technically looking for love today, but you're also not looking. Someone mentioned that Nefret, the potter's daughter with the excellent cheekbones, might be single again. The gods are mysterious, but you're feeling bold. You splash on some extra myrrh oil and fluff your linen like it'll hide your awkwardness. Love in ancient Egypt isn't all hearts and hieroglyphs. It's a contract negotiation with poetry sprinkled on top. You don't fall in love. You offer gifts, you recite songs, and eventually, if all goes well, you both sign a papyrus stating who owns which goat and what happens if someone forgets an anniversary. You meet Nefret at the market, casually inspecting onions, like you don't see her standing there, looking radiant and mildly dangerous. She glances your way. You say something about the price of garlic. She smirks. This is going well. You walk together through the market. You offer her a honey cake. She accepts. You don't even mind that it costs you 3 days' worth of thread. She says your sandals are decent. You decide this might be destiny. Later, you visit her family to discuss intentions. You bring your uncle, because one does not solo a courtship in Egypt. He's mostly there to say things like, his father owned 4 donkeys, and he can count to 100 without help. Nefret's mother asks what your dowry includes. You stammer something about barley, 2 geese, and a borrowed cow. Her father nods. Acceptable. You all sit down and draft a marriage contract. Yes, a real, legal document. It outlines the terms of the union. Your shared assets, your responsibilities, her rights to 1/3 of the household goods if you split up, and who gets the olive press in case of separation. It's oddly romantic. The scribal apprentice reads it aloud in a nasal tone. Should he abandon her, he shall return all gifts, including the sandals purchased during their second harvest together. You and Nefret exchange glances. You both try not to laugh. It's all very formal. You're both very sweaty. Once it's official, a small feast is held. Bread, beer, salted fish, and fruit. You sit beside your new partner, sharing a pomegranate. She feeds you a seed. Your little brother makes gagging noises. You throw a date at his head. Historians note that ancient Egyptian marriages didn't involve grand ceremonies. Most began with mutual agreement and a shared household. But love? It's everywhere. In poetry, in paintings, in the quiet way Nefret adjusts your collar because you look like a tangled reed. Your days together quickly settle into rhythm. She weaves baskets while you grind grain. She sings while you patch the roof. You argue once over how much lentil stew is too much lentil stew. You apologize by bringing her lotus flowers. She forgives you by braiding your hair with blue beads. But love in Egypt isn't just about domestic bliss. It's also about jealous exes, nosy neighbors, and extremely passive-aggressive amulets. One morning, you wake to find a small clay figurine buried near your doorway. It's crudely shaped, wrapped in black thread, and marked with a name. Yours. You recognize it instantly. A love spell gone wrong. You show it to the village priestess. She inspects it, frowns, and says, "Someone wants you to have an unfortunate rash." She burns it with incense and mutters a counter curse involving garlic smoke and chanting about ducks. You cough, but you feel better. Also slightly more flammable. Later, Nefret finds out. "Let me guess," she says. "That weird flax seller who kept touching your elbow." You nod. She rolls her eyes. "I'll handle it." You don't ask what that means. You just stay out of the flax market for a few weeks. Then comes the baby question. Not from you, from everyone else. Any good news yet? Have the gods smiled upon your house? Did you make an offering to Taweret? Even the fish...
You and Nefret start leaving fake offerings just to get people to stop asking. Eventually, though, the signs appear. Nefret craves onions dipped in beer. She sleeps curled like a cat. Her face glows. The midwife confirms it. She carries new life. Suddenly, you're involved in pre-birth rituals you never knew existed. You paint protective signs on the walls. Eyes, serpents, ankhs. You bury amulets under the bed. You carve a tiny ivory hippo to guard the doorway. And every night, you whisper prayers to Bes, the squat, ugly god of childbirth, hoping he hears you and keeps the scary stuff away. The day arrives. You boil water. You fan. You panic. The midwife tells you to leave. You go outside and sit on the roof, chewing your nails and muttering to Thoth, the god of wisdom, like he can help your child arrive faster. After hours, a cry pierces the air. It's not divine. It's human, raw, loud. Yours. You rush inside. Nefret is tired but smiling. In her arms, a red, squirming, perfect little human wrapped in linen. You name her Sataset, daughter of Isis. That night, you place a lamp by the doorway, a soft cloth over your baby's face, and kiss Nefret's hand. You whisper thanks to all the gods, real or imagined. Because in that moment, with your tiny family asleep beside you, you feel like a pharaoh. You're woken up by knocking. Not the friendly, come borrow some garlic kind of knock. More like the someone's been accused of stealing temple grain and we're not leaving until we get answers kind. You groggily pull on a tunic and shuffle to the doorway to find two guards in linen kilts, bronze daggers, and expressions that say, "We didn't sleep either." They inform you you've been summoned to the local court, not as a criminal, yet, but as a witness. Because nothing in ancient Egypt screams good morning like a sudden brush with the legal system. You sigh, grab your amulet of Mot, goddess of truth and cosmic order, and head out, hoping this doesn't end with you accidentally getting cursed. The court is set up in the open courtyard of a small administrative building. There's no fancy judge's bench or dramatic gavels, just a long mat, a few scribes with ink-stained fingers, and an official-looking man chewing on a reed stalk and glaring at everyone like he knows they're lying. This is a local council court, staffed by village elders, priests, and administrators. Above them, symbolically and literally, hangs a carved image of Mot's feather. You know the drill. If your words don't align with truth, your soul will feel it. Or at least your kneecaps will. The classic, you're called to testify because your house faces the granary. You explain you heard footsteps at night but couldn't tell who it was. You do mention that someone tripped over a pot and swore loudly in a voice that sounded like Mena, but you add, it could have been anyone with that level of dramatic flair. The scribes write this down slowly, adding decorative little curls to the hieroglyphs as if your uncertainty needs more flourish. One of the elders frowns. Did you see the person? No, you say, but the cat ran past me. It looked alarmed. Noted.
the scribe says. The court calls on a second witness, a baker's apprentice who saw footprints near the grain shed. He insists they were clearly Mena's because they were narrow with a slight limp. Mena removes his sandal and protests, "Do these look narrow to you?" Chaos ensues. The judge bangs a stick on the mat. "Enough!" Everyone quiets. Then comes the oath. Mena steps forward, raises his hand, and swears before the god Thoth that he speaks the truth. "If I lie," he says, "may the crocodiles find me delicious." It's poetic. The elders deliberate. You wait nervously. These aren't jury trials. This is reputation, character, and whether or not the priest in charge had a good breakfast. Finally, they decide. Mena is innocent, but suspicious. He's fined a sack of grain anyway, for failing to secure the area. Mena's eyes widen. "But it wasn't my grain." "That's why it's a fine," the judge replies, smugly. You walk home with Mena, who mutters the entire way about injustice, temple favoritism, and how he's going to start storing his grain with the neighbor's goat just to be safe. Later that week, another summons arrives. This time you're not a witness, you're being accused. Specifically of violating a water share agreement. Apparently your canal channel took too much irrigation water during your turn, depriving your other neighbor's crops of vital moisture. She says her onions are half dead, which in Egyptian terms is practically theft of life. You're stunned. You measured carefully. Or mostly carefully. You were a little distracted that day by your toddler chasing a frog into the reeds. At the court, you present your water tally, a wooden tablet marked with notches showing exactly how much water you used. The scribe squints. This notch is unclear. Could be 5, could be 7. You try to explain frog-related distractions. It doesn't go over well. Then your spouse shows up, holding the actual water jar with the knot tied at the exact measurement line. You point to it. "See, that's 6. The elders confer. One nods sagely. The jar has spoken. You're found not guilty, but you're ordered to bake apology bread for your neighbor. You agree, quietly noting you'll use less yeast. Petty justice is still justice. That evening, you reflect on how
It's not about guilt or innocence. It's about keeping the village from imploding under the weight of stolen onions and dramatic footprints. You light incense to Ma'at that night, just in case. And when your goat knocks over the apology bread while no one's looking, you smile and whisper, "May the crocodiles find you delicious." The heat today is relentless. Not the dry, tolerable desert kind, but the sticky, smells like fried figs and sweat kind. You're dragging your sandals through the dust, hoping for a breeze, when you hear it. The temple bell. A low, rolling clang that echoes through the village like an ancient heartbeat. You don't need to be told twice. It's Temple Volunteer Day, and your name is on the list. Again. You sigh and head toward the Temple of Amun, a massive stone structure that smells like old incense, wet limestone, and secrets. Its towering pylons are etched with battle scenes, gods riding chariots, and one priest who clearly bribed the artist for more muscle definition. You step inside and immediately feel cooler. The stone floors, thick columns, and lack of sunlight create a natural air conditioning system. If you ignore the heavy smell of melted resin and a small army of chanting acolytes who clearly skip breakfast. You're greeted by Kenzum, a senior priest with eyes like dried figs and a memory sharper than obsidian. "You're late," he says, even though you're not. You nod anyway. Arguing with temple hierarchy is like yelling at the moon. Your assignment? Cleaning the sacred offering table. No pressure. The table is covered with crumbs of honey cakes, splashes of red wine, dried lotus petals, and somehow a lizard tail. You sweep, wipe, and polish, using a cloth dipped in perfumed water. Every item must be placed back with reverence. Bread on the right, beer on the left, onions in the middle, and always 3 dates, never 2. Never.
Next, you help prepare incense. You grind frankincense, myrrh, and dried herbs into a sticky paste. One priest adds powdered cedar while humming a hymn about purity and flaming cobras. Another priest insists on adding a drop of his own blood for spiritual potency. You pretend not to see that part. Historians still argue whether these rituals were performed exactly as the texts say, or if local priests added flair. Judging by the one now painting protective runes on his feet, flair is alive and well. You carry a tray of incense to the inner sanctuary, a space so sacred only a few can enter. You're not one of them, but you're allowed to peek. Inside, a golden statue of Amun glows in the dim light, its face serene, its crown towering, its gaze somewhere between divine love and, you forgot to remove your sandals. You light the incense. The room fills with fragrant smoke that curls like dreams. A young priest whispers a prayer. O Amun, hidden one, whose breath is the wind, accept our offerings. You repeat it quietly, letting the words roll through you like the river. Afterward, you join a group organizing the temple storerooms. This means stacking jars of oil, wine, dried herbs, and something labeled simply as snake parts. You pretend that last one's not your business. You pass the scribe's hall, where records are kept, meticulously written scrolls tracking donations, ceremonies, prophecies, and whether anyone sneezed during the solstice chant. One scribe invites you in, eager to show off a new spell he copied. It's titled, A Formula to Prevent Dreams of Falling Off Tall Buildings. You compliment his handwriting and slowly back away. In the main courtyard, pilgrims arrive, some from miles away, carrying offerings. Baskets of grain, feathers, clay statuettes, even a goose. A woman insists the goose sings when happy. It hisses. Close enough. You help place their gifts in the offering zone and tie prayers to a wooden frame shaped like the Eye of Ra. One man prays for a son, another prays for rain. A third simply asks that his donkey stop running away. You think that's fair. Later, a ritual drama begins, a performance acted by priests in costume. One plays Osiris, god of dead. Another plays Set, the jealous brother. There's yelling, symbolic murder, and dramatic collapsing into lotus ponds. The priest playing Isis enters and scolds everyone like a disappointed aunt. It's riveting. Children watch wide-eyed. You notice a toddler clapping every time someone dies. Future thespian. Your final task is the evening offering. You carry a clay bowl filled with warm milk, incense, and tiny slices of honeyed bread to the statue of Maat. You kneel, set the bowl down, and whisper, "Bring balance to this house. Let order bloom like the lotus." As you rise, a breeze passes through the temple. The lamps flicker. The priest behind you nods, slowly. Maybe coincidence. Maybe something more. You leave after sunset, walking past torchlit walls and shadows shaped like gods. The temple behind you hums with lingering prayers. You pass your neighbors, gathering near a cooking fire. Someone's telling a story about a priest who tripped during a sun festival and claimed it was a sign from Ra. Everyone laughs. You smile, sit down, and accept a bowl of stew. The temple may have been divine, but this, smoke in your hair, family beside you, stars overhead, this is sacred too. Later that night, as you lie on the roof watching Orion rise, you trace the stars with your finger and murmur one last prayer, not to a statue but to the sky. Keep us steady. Keep us kind. A breeze answers. Maybe the gods heard. The dream comes suddenly. You're standing in a field of golden grain, the sun hanging low over the horizon like an enormous amber bead. A cool wind brushes your cheek, and somewhere behind you there's a door, massive, stone-carved, opening without sound. You turn to face it and realize you're dead. Well, not you exactly, but in this dream, in this moment, you are the ancient Egyptian soul who has crossed the final threshold. The time has come. Welcome to the Hall of Two Truths. The room is endless. Its floor is black stone, smooth as the Nile. Its ceiling? Stars. Not painted stars, real ones, flickering and shifting in impossible constellations. You walk forward, barefoot, feeling no pain, no hunger, no fear. You are alone. Except you're not. To your left stands Anubis, the jackal-headed guide of the dead. His eyes gleam like obsidian, and though his face does not move, you feel something like reassurance. Behind him, A massive golden scale waits in silence. To your right is Thoth, ibis-headed god of writing and wisdom. He holds a reed pen, ready to record everything, every act, every breath, every stolen onion, and every whispered prayer. And in the center of the scale lies a single white feather, the feather of Ma'at, symbol of truth, balance, justice, and order. You feel your heart pulled from your chest, not physically but symbolically, gracefully, and placed on the opposite pan. The moment holds its breath. You are not told to speak. No long defense, no dramatic speeches. Your deeds weigh for you. Your kindness, your jealousy, that time you cursed at your goat, it's all here. Historians still debate whether this was metaphor or literal ritual, but every Egyptian lived like this day would come. Every meal, every handshake, every offering was a rehearsal for this.
Then, stills. Perfect balance. Anubis nods. Thoth records. And behind you, a sound like thundersoft laughter echoes through the chamber. Because you passed. You are just enough good, just enough kind, just enough you. But this isn't the end. You turn, and there she is. Amit, the devourer. Part lion, part crocodile, part hippo. She waits beside the scale, licking her teeth. Her job? To consume the hearts of those who failed. To destroy the unworthy forever. She looks at you, tilts her head, snorts. Boring, her expression says. You smile nervously and step past her, trying not to make eye contact. She yawns and curls up. You're free to go. Thoth gestures forward, and Anubis walks beside you through a golden archway into the fields of reeds. It is not heaven exactly, but it's familiar. A perfect version of Egypt. Fertile, quiet, balanced. You see fields that never flood too high, trees heavy with dates and figs, boats gliding effortlessly across still waters. Everyone wears their best linen, their youngest smiles. You walk past loved ones who've been waiting. They greet you without surprise. You see your grandparents. A teacher. Even the goose that bit your leg when you were 9. Everyone is there, better, lighter, healed. You are given your own field, a paradise version of your home. No leaks, no sandstorms, no flies. You have everything you need. Time, peace, comfort. You plant crops that never wilt, bake bread that never burns, drink wine that never sours. You sing to the sky and laugh until your stomach aches. And yet, strangely, you're allowed to visit the world above. Because your soul, like all souls, is tied to the living by memory. Back in the village, your name is still spoken. Your children leave offerings. Your friends remember your jokes. Your spouse lights a lamp every year and whispers, "I hope you're happy." You are. Eventually, even that memory fades. The offerings slow, the stories soften. But you're not sad, because the field of reeds doesn't rely on attention. It exists because you lived with balance. You honored Ma'at, and now you rest. Forever. You are lying on warm linen, your body weightless, your breath slow and steady. The soft hum of distant flutes lingers in the air like a song remembered from a dream. Somewhere far away the Nile drifts by in silence, its waters silver in the moonlight. Your hands no longer ache, your feet are clean, the heat is gone, no sand in your tunic, no blisters on your palms, just stillness, just peace. The walls of your old mud brick home flicker in memory. Warm bread on a clay plate, children laughing, someone humming a tune out of key. You remember the taste of honey, the scent of myrrh, the sound of frogs during flood season. Every moment, small and shining. Now, the sky stretches endlessly above you. A single star pulses gently, as if blinking a final goodbye. You did enough. You were enough. And now, you can rest. Let your breath grow softer. Let your muscles loosen. Let the stories fade behind you like a well-told tale, closed gently with the tip of a reed pen. The gods are quiet now. The world is quiet now. Sleep.